Welcome to our channel. Today, we will explore the chilling and mysterious stories of Texas, a place where the past remains vibrant and the souls have yet to find peace. From the ghostly performances at the Sam Bass Theater to the haunting experiences at Fort Phantom Hill, where painful memories still linger, we'll stroll through Lamar Park, home to the spirit of a man searching for something he will never find, and visit the Woodbine Station, where the souls of unfortunate passengers continue to wander. Next, let's uncover the secrets of the cursed church in San Juan, a place steeped in mystery and haunting crimes. And finally, we'll check out the haunted house on Railroad Street, which holds terrifying tales that few dare to recount. Get ready for an adventure filled with thrills and mysteries, where darkness will lead you into experiences you never imagined. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss out on our exciting upcoming videos. Let's go to the first story. The haunted reformatory at Fort Phantom Hill. Nestled in the arid landscape of Abilene, Texas, Fort Phantom Hill once served as a vital military outpost in the mid-19th century. This fortification played a crucial role during times of conflict, acting as a refuge for soldiers and a base for operations. However, after a devastating fire ravaged the grounds, the fort was abandoned, leaving behind only whispers of its storied past. Over time, the site became known as the Haunted Reformatory, where stories of restless spirits lingered, haunted by the memories of soldiers who had died there from illness, warfare, and mysterious suicides. Locals living in the vicinity spoke of strange occurrences, flickering lights emerging from the dilapidated buildings or the distant sound of gunfire echoing through the quiet night. Some recounted encounters with the spectral figures of soldiers in tattered uniforms, patrolling the dirt paths of the fort as if they were still fulfilling their duties in times of war. Each story added to the mystique of Fort Phantom Hill, creating an aura of both intrigue and dread. A night of exploration. One fateful night, a group of adventurous friends, Mark, Lisa, Jake, and Sarah, decided to explore Fort Phantom Hill and uncover the truth behind the haunting legends. Armed with flashlights and a sense of excitement mixed with apprehension, they made their way through the overgrown grass and weeds that surrounded the ruins. As they approached the entrance, a chill ran down their spines, the oppressive silence amplifying their heartbeat. The fort loomed ahead, its crumbling walls illuminated by the crescent moon, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and each step they took felt heavy with the weight of history. As they crossed the threshold, the temperature seemed to drop, and a shiver of unease swept over them. As they ventured deeper into the fort, they stumbled upon the main building. It stood as a ghost of its former self, with shattered windows and peeling paint. The group paused as a faint whisper floated through the air, drawing their attention. At first, it was barely audible, but as they strained to listen, the whispers intensified, resembling distant voices engaged in conversation. They exchanged glances, tension palpable as they stood frozen in place. Suddenly, a deafening gunshot rang out, echoing through the desolate hallways and causing them to jump in shock. "What was that?" Lisa gasped, her eyes wide with fear. They turned toward the sound, and in that instant, they saw a shadowy figure standing in one of the broken windows. It was a soldier, his face twisted in pain, clutching his chest as if he had just been shot. Confronting the unknown, the group stood there, paralyzed by fear, as the ghostly figure seemed to sway with the breeze. Trapped in a moment of torment, Mark's heart raced as he felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but his feet remained rooted to the ground. The soldier's eyes locked onto theirs, a haunting plea for help emanating from his sorrowful gaze. Just as quickly as he appeared, the apparition began to fade into a thick fog, leaving behind an icy chill that seeped into their bones. "We have to get out of here," Jake finally blurted, breaking the spell. The friends turned and bolted from the fort, their hearts pounding in their chests. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of their car, gasping for breath as the reality of what they had just witnessed sank in. Once they were back in the vehicle, the gravity of the experience began to settle over them like a heavy blanket. "Did we really see that?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. It felt so real. The others nodded in agreement, each grappling with their own disbelief. They had come seeking a thrill, but what they encountered was far beyond anything they had anticipated. The haunting legacy. Fort Phantom Hill stood as a silent sentinel against the vast Texas sky. A reminder of a bloody past and the spirits that lingered in its shadows. As the friends shared their experience with others in the days that followed, they learned that they were not alone in their encounter. Many had felt the ghostly presence and had stories to tell about the haunted reformatory. The local legends continued to circulate, warning those who dared to enter the fort after dark. The tales spoke of strange phenomena, the sound of distant marching, flickering lanterns in the windows, and the sense of being watched. The spirits were restless, bound to the land where their lives were cut short. Despite their terror, David and his friends felt compelled to honor the memory of the soldiers who had perished at Fort Phantom Hill. They organized gatherings to share stories and pay tribute to those who had died, turning the ghostly encounters into a means of healing and remembrance for the community. Finding peace amidst the haunting. As time passed, the gatherings grew in popularity, drawing in more and more visitors eager to learn about the fort's haunted history. With each shared story, the energy surrounding Fort Phantom Hill began to shift. The once oppressive atmosphere lightened, transformed by laughter and remembrance. The spirits of the fort, once trapped in a cycle of despair, started to feel the warmth of connection from the living. David often returned to the fort, feeling a deepening bond with the history it held. He would stand in the courtyard, gazing at the remnants of the fort, and he could almost sense the presence of the soldiers, no longer just figures of sorrow, but a part of the narrative he sought to honor. One night, as the group gathered to recount their experiences, the moon hung high, illuminating the ruins with a silvery glow. David felt a wave of gratitude wash over him as he spoke about the journey they had taken from fear to understanding. These spirits deserve to be remembered, he said. Their stories must live on, just like ours. A new beginning. The haunted reputation of Fort Phantom Hill transformed from one of terror to one of respect and remembrance. The community embraced the stories, sharing them with newcomers and ensuring that the memories of the fallen soldiers were honored. The ghost of the fort became a symbol of resilience, reminding everyone that even in death, the stories of those who came before us deserve to be heard. As the seasons change, David and his friends continued to lead gatherings, drawing in more people eager to learn about the history of the fort. On calm nights, they would sit together, sharing tales of the past and their own encounters with the supernatural. Eventually, the haunted reformatory became a site of peace, where the living and the spirits could coexist. As David stood by the remnants of Fort Phantom Hill, he felt a profound connection to the soldiers who had once patrolled its grounds. He understood that their stories were woven into the fabric of the community, forever intertwined with the legacy of the fort. And on clear nights, when the moon cast its light over the ruins, David could almost hear the echoes of gratitude carried on the breeze, a gentle reminder that while some souls may linger, they can also find peace through the love and remembrance of those who still walk the earth. Next we start the second story. The Ghosts of Woodbine Station. Nestled in Gainesville, Texas, the Woodbine Station once thrived as a bustling hub of commerce, welcoming thousands of travelers each year. Its grand architecture and vibrant atmosphere stood as a testament to a time when the station pulsed with life and excitement. But all that changed in the mid-20th century when the station fell into disrepair and was eventually abandoned, leaving behind only rusting train cars and a chilling air of mystery. The station became an echo of the past, where ghostly whispers lingered and tales of tragedy unfolded. According to local legends, it was in the 1940s when disaster struck Woodbine Station. A catastrophic train accident claimed the lives of many passengers, their final moments filled with terror and confusion. Since that fateful day, the spirits of the deceased have been said to haunt the remnants of the station, unable to depart from the scene of their untimely demise. Residents living in close proximity to the abandoned station often report eerie sounds, an agonizing screech of train brakes and desperate screams carried on the wind. On still nights, they have seen flickering lights emanating from the derelict train cars, casting an otherworldly glow that dances across the cracked pavement. Some even claim to have witnessed the ghostly figures of passengers clad in vintage clothing, standing silently on the platform, waiting for a train that will never arrive. A night of exploration. One fateful night, a group of adventurous friends, Emily, Jake, Sarah, and Tom, decided to uncover the truth behind the chilling tale surrounding Woodbine Station. Armed with flashlights and an insatiable curiosity, they hopped over the rusted fence that surrounded the desolate grounds and ventured into the overgrown platform. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. As they explored the eerie landscape, their flashlights illuminated the skeletal remains of train cars, their metal exteriors corroded by time. The group cautiously climbed aboard an old boxcar, and as they did, a sudden gust of icy wind swept through, sending shivers down their spines. "Did you feel that?" Sarah whispered, glancing nervously around. Just then, a distant whistle echoed in the stillness, causing the group to jump. They exchanged bewildered looks as they turned toward the sound. To their horror, they saw the glow of lights approaching from the darkness. A train was coming toward them, its headlights cutting through the night, but there was something unsettling about it. The tracks had been removed years ago, leaving nothing but an empty platform. The phantom train. As the lights grew closer, the friends felt a mix of fear and awe. Out of the fog emerged a spectral train, shimmering and ethereal, as if plucked from another time. The train's carriages glided silently along the non-existent tracks, and figures began to materialize on the platform. They were ghostly silhouettes of passengers, their expressions filled with a haunting sorrow as they prepared to board the phantom train. Frozen in shock, the friends stood rooted to the spot. The scene was surreal. Muffled whispers floated through the air, blending with the echo of the train whistle. Before they could comprehend what was happening, the group instinctively turned and fled from the boxcar, their hearts racing. But as they glanced back, the train and its spectral passengers had vanished, leaving only the empty platform bathed in moonlight. The oppressive silence that followed was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. The Woodbine Station stood as a solemn relic of a forgotten era, a monument to the spirits trapped within. The aftermath. Once outside, the group caught their breath, the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. "What just happened?" Jake gasped, trying to rationalize their experience. They looked at one another, each face mirroring the confusion and terror they felt. They knew the stories were true now. They had witnessed something that defied explanation, something that confirmed the lingering legends surrounding the cursed Woodbine Station. They exchanged stories of the ghosts they had seen and the whispers they had heard, each recounting their own perceptions of the inexplicable events. The night was far from over, yet the weight of their discovery pressed heavily on their minds. They made their way back toward the entrance, glancing over their shoulders every few moments, half expecting to see the ghostly figures reappearing in the mist. As they reached the fence, a deep sense of unease settled over them. The friends vowed never to return to the station, recognizing the danger that lingered within its confines. The souls trapped in the station were not just legends, they were a haunting reminder of the lives lost and the pain that had unfolded on that very platform. A haunting legacy. The Woodbine Station remained a ghostly landmark in Gainesville, a site where the past echoed loudly in the present. The stories of its haunted history were not mere tales. They had become a part of the collective consciousness of the town. The locals continued to warn outsiders to steer clear of the station after dark, for the spirits trapped within would not forgive those who dared to intrude upon their eternal rest. As the friends drove away, the station receded into the distance, a silhouette against the starry sky. They had encountered the unexplained and escaped a darkness that was all too real. The legends of the haunted train station were no longer stories told around a campfire. They were woven into the fabric of their lives. A chilling reminder of a night when the veil between the living and the dead had been lifted. In the following weeks, the friends often found themselves reflecting on that night, the lingering images of the train and its ghostly passengers haunting their dreams. They had ventured into the unknown and returned with a newfound respect for the mysteries that lay hidden within the shadows. Woodbine Station was more than just a place. It was a reminder of the fragility of life and the ties that bind us to those who have come before. As they recounted their tale to friends, their story became a legend of its own, inspiring others to consider the history that surrounds them and the spirits that may still linger, waiting for their stories to be told. And though they had escaped, they knew the ghosts of Woodbine Station would continue to watch over their abandoned domain, forever entwined in a haunting embrace. Continue to the third story. The Cursed Church of San Juan. Nestled in the desolate outskirts of the Rio Grande Valley, Texas, stands the San Juan Church, an old and decaying structure that once served as a vibrant gathering place for the local community. Its crumbling facade and broken stained glass windows now tell a haunting tale of a dark past, where vibrant worship and joyous gatherings have been replaced by whispers of horror. According to local legend, the church became cursed after a brutal massacre unfolded within its walls in the early 20th century. The night of the tragedy was supposed to be one of reverence, a special evening for the community to come together in prayer and reflection. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the valley, the church was filled with eager congregants, their faces lit by flickering candles. However, that night would end in chaos. A group of fanatical followers, driven by delusions and rage, stormed the sanctuary, targeting the beloved priest who had dedicated his life to serving his flock. Screams filled the air as innocent lives were extinguished, their last breaths echoing within the very walls that once stood as a beacon of hope. Since that fateful night, the spirits of those slain have reportedly lingered within the church, their souls trapped in a purgatory of despair. Residents living nearby claim that on moonless nights, the air becomes thick with an unsettling presence. They have recounted chilling tales of soft prayers drifting through the darkness, interspersed with heart-wrenching cries that seem to emanate from the church itself. Some have claimed to see shadowy figures moving past the broken windows or to hear the tolling of church bells ringing at midnight. Even though the church has been abandoned for decades, the curious friends, one fateful evening, a group of curious friends, Mark, Sarah, Jake, and Lila, decided to venture to the San Juan Church to investigate the legends for themselves. Fueled by a mix of excitement and trepidation, they made their way through the overgrown grass that surrounded the property. As they approached, the old wooden door creaked open as if inviting them inside, the sound echoing eerily in the still night air. The moment they stepped inside, a chill ran down their spines. The air was heavy and stagnant, saturated with the musty scent of mildew and rotting wood. Dust motes floated in the faint beams of moonlight that managed to penetrate the thick darkness. They moved cautiously, their flashlights flickering as they illuminated the interior. Rows of decayed pews lined the sanctuary, while at the far end loomed a large, cobweb-covered cross, a silent witness to the horrors that had unfolded there. As they ventured deeper into the church, an eerie sensation enveloped them, as if unseen eyes were watching from the shadows. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the air, a soft, haunting voice as if someone was praying. They stopped, holding their breath to listen more closely. The whisper grew louder, filling the space with an unsettling urgency. But as they approached the source of the sound, it abruptly ceased. Panic set in, and they exchanged nervous glances. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Just then, flickering lights resembling candle flames began to appear between the rows of pews, casting strange, dancing shadows on the walls. The atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension settling in as the lights began to pulse. A grasp from the darkness. "Let's get out of here," Mark urged, feeling a rush of adrenaline. The group turned to leave, but as they made their way toward the exit, an unseen force gripped Jake's arm. He felt a chilling pressure pulling him back, immobilizing him in place. "Help!" he shouted, panic in his voice. The rest of the group rushed to him, but it felt as though an invisible weight held him fast, making it impossible to escape the grip of whatever force had ensnared him. "Let go of him," Lila cried, trying to pull Jake free. But the harder they tugged, the tighter the force seemed to grip him. Just as they were about to lose hope, the pressure suddenly released, and Jake stumbled forward as if thrust from a hidden grasp. They rushed toward the door, hearts pounding as the darkness behind them seemed to swell, closing in around their retreat. As they burst out into the cool night air, they gasped for breath, glancing back at the church with wide, terrified eyes. The door creaked closed behind them, but they could have sworn they saw a shadowy figure standing in the doorway, watching their escape. The lingering terror. The San Juan Church remained a haunting silhouette against the night sky, a testament to the violent past that lingered within its walls. As the friends gathered their wits, the realization of what they had encountered began to sink in. The legends were true. The spirits of the wronged had not found peace. From that night on, they would never forget the chill of the air, the whispers in the darkness, and the feeling of being watched. Local residents continued to warn strangers to stay clear of the cursed church, for the restless souls within would not hesitate to protect their domain from intruders. The San Juan Church stood as a grim reminder of the past, forever haunted by the events that transpired within, where life was snuffed out too soon, and darkness reigned eternal. As the friends walked away, they knew they had narrowly escaped the grasp of something truly sinister. The stories of the cursed church were no longer just tales, they were now a part of their reality, forever etched in their memories. They left with a deeper understanding of the history that surrounded them, knowing that some places are best left undisturbed, for the echoes of the past can sometimes be all too real. Continue to Story 4. The Haunted House on Railroad Road. In the remote town of Yoakum, Texas, nestled at the end of a desolate path known as Railroad Road, stands a house shrouded in fear and secrecy. To the unknowing passerby, it might look like any other old, dilapidated structure, its once grand facade now crumbling under the weight of time, its windows shattered and lifeless. But to the locals, the house on Railroad Road is infamous. For decades, it has been known as a place of unspeakable horror, where restless spirits dwell and sinister shadows linger in the dark corners. The tragic history of the house began many years ago, when it belonged to a wealthy family who lived there during the early 1900s. They were prosperous and respected, known for hosting lavish parties and gatherings. But everything changed one stormy night. A brutal massacre took place inside those very walls, leaving not a single member of the family alive. Their bodies were found strewn throughout the rooms, torn apart as if by a savage beast. The culprit was never identified, and with no one left to claim it, the house was abandoned, left to decay, along with the spirits of its unfortunate inhabitants. The legend lives on. As the years passed, the house fell deeper into ruin, its walls cracked and covered in creeping vines, and the front porch sagging with neglect. Yet, despite its decrepit appearance, the house has never been truly empty. The locals say that at night, you can see strange lights flickering through the broken windows, darting from room to room as if someone, or something, is wandering the halls. Some have reported hearing faint cries and soft whispers drifting through the night air, like the echoes of the dead trapped within. Curiosity seekers have often dared to venture into the house, armed with nothing more than flashlights and a sense of thrill-seeking bravado. Many have claimed to feel an unseen force pushing them back, an invisible presence that seems to watch their every move. Some have even seen dark figures moving along the walls, shifting in the shadows just out of sight. But one thing is certain, no one leaves the house without experiencing something unnatural. The Dare. One Friday night, a group of teenagers, Mark, Sarah, Jake, and Lila, decided they were going to brave the haunted house on Railroad Road. They'd heard the stories, of course, but like many before them, they were convinced that it was nothing more than local folklore, a scary tale spun to keep kids away from a dangerous, crumbling building. "Come on, it's just an old house," Mark said as he steered his car down the empty road. "What's the worst that could happen?" "Yeah," Jake chimed in from the backseat, his voice tinged with mock confidence. "Maybe we'll see a ghost or two and make it onto one of those paranormal TV shows." Sarah, however, wasn't so sure. She stared out the window at the dark trees looming on either side of the road. "People have died there, Mark. They say no one should ever go inside after midnight." "Relax, Sarah," Lila said, leaning forward from the backseat. "We're just going to take a look around. A few pictures for the gram, and we're out." But as they pulled up to the end of Railroad Road, even Mark's bravado began to fade. The house loomed ahead of them, its silhouette stark against the night sky. A thick fog clung to the ground, swirling lazily around the base of the house like some malevolent entity. The front door, barely hanging on its hinges, creaked open slightly as if inviting them in. Mark turned off the engine, and for a moment, they all just sat there, staring at the house in silence. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Let's do this." They grabbed their flashlights and stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching under their feet. As they approached the front porch, a sudden chill swept through the air, making them shiver. "It's just the wind," Jake muttered, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. With a deep breath, Mark pushed open the door. It swung inward with a long, drawn-out creak, revealing the dark interior. They stepped inside, and immediately, the temperature plummeted. The air was thick and oppressive, almost suffocating in its weight. "This place feels wrong," Sarah whispered, hugging her arms around herself. Mark shone his flashlight around, illuminating dusty furniture, peeling wallpaper, and cobweb-covered chandeliers. "It's just an old house," he said, though his voice was quieter now. But as they moved deeper into the house, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Every time they turned a corner, it felt as though eyes were boring into the back of their heads. Shadows seemed to dance along the walls, and the floorboards creaked under their weight, echoing loudly through the stillness. They made their way to the living room, a large space dominated by a grand fireplace. The air was colder here, and as they stood in the middle of the room, they heard it, a soft, almost inaudible whisper. "Go, leave, now?" They froze, staring at each other with wide eyes. "Did you hear that?" Lila whispered. Before anyone could answer, a loud crash rang out. One of the heavy armchairs across the room suddenly lurched forward, as if thrown by an unseen hand. It skidded across the floor and slammed into the wall with a resounding thud. "Holy shit," Jake yelped, stumbling backward. "What the hell was that? Let's get out of here," Sarah breathed, backing toward the door, but as she reached for the handle, the door suddenly slammed shut, the impact rattling the walls. Panic surged through them. Mark and Jake rushed to the door, tugging at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "It's locked," Mark shouted, his voice tinged with fear. "I can't get it open." And then they heard it, a low, rumbling laugh that seemed to echo from the very walls around them. Slowly, they turned, their flashlights sweeping over the room. Standing in the corner, partially hidden in the shadows, was the figure of a man. His outline was blurry, almost insubstantial, but they could see his eyes, two glowing orbs that seemed to burn with a malevolent light. "You shouldn't have come here," the figure whispered, his voice low and rasping. The words seemed to hang in the air, chilling them to their very core. They stared, paralyzed with fear, as the figure began to move forward, his form flickering like a broken image. "Run," Lila screamed, and at that moment, the door behind them flew open with a violent gust of wind. They didn't hesitate. They sprinted out of the house, their screams echoing in the night as they scrambled back to the car. Mark fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking uncontrollably, and finally managed to start the engine. They sped away, the house receding into the darkness behind them. A cursed place. Even as they left the house far behind, the fear lingered. Sarah swore she could still feel eyes watching them from the rearview mirror. And Jake kept glancing nervously out the windows as if expecting to see the figure standing at the roadside. They never spoke about what happened that night. None of them ever returned to the house on Railroad Road. But the memory of that terrible laughter, those burning eyes, and the unseen force that seemed to push them back haunts them to this day. The house remains, abandoned and decaying, a silent witness to the tragedy and anger that linger within its walls. Those brave enough to approach are always warned, stay away, for the spirits inside are not at rest, and they do not welcome intruders. If you find yourself at the end of Railroad Road, heed the warnings, for once you step inside that forsaken house, you may find that leaving is not so easy, and the spirits may decide to keep you there forever. Continue to the fifth story. The Ghost of Lamar Park. In the heart of Beaumont, Texas, lies Lamar Park, a sprawling recreational area filled with winding paths and lush green fields. By day, it is a vibrant oasis where families picnic, children play, and laughter fills the air. However, when night falls, the park transforms into a place steeped in eerie tales and haunted shadows, where restless spirits are said to lurk among the trees. Locals believe that Lamar Park is haunted by the ghost of a man who tragically drowned in the lake many years ago. His death shrouded in mystery. It is said that his soul never found peace, forever bound to the site of his untimely demise. Those who venture into the park after dark have reported unsettling experiences, feeling an unseen presence watching them from the shadows or hearing the faint sound of footsteps echoing behind them. Some have claimed to see the outline of a man dressed in old-fashioned clothing, standing silently by the water's edge, his hollow eyes gazing into the depths of the lake as if searching for something lost. The haunting encounter. One fateful night, a man named David decided to take a solitary stroll through Lamar Park. He had heard the stories about the ghost, but he dismissed them as mere folklore, a way to spice up the quiet evenings in Beaumont. As he walked along the path, the rustling leaves and the cool breeze added an air of tranquility to his thoughts. But as he approached the lake, the atmosphere shifted. A dense fog began to roll in, casting an ominous veil over the water. When he reached the shoreline, David noticed a figure standing at the water's edge, silhouetted against the moonlight. The figure's shoulders were slumped, and it appeared to be weeping silently. Mistaking the apparition for another late-night park-goer in distress, David felt a sense of concern. Perhaps someone needed help. He stepped closer, calling out, "Hey, are you all right?" But as he got nearer, the figure slowly raised its head. David's heart raced as he took in the sight before him. The man's face was pale and gaunt, with deep-set eyes that lacked any trace of white. An unsettling smile crept across the ghostly visage, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp for comfort. "Come down, find me," the figure croaked, its voice echoing like the rustle of dead leaves. The words hung heavy in the air, filled with an otherworldly sorrow. A race against fear. David's blood ran cold. Panic surged through him, and without thinking, he turned to flee. His heart pounded in his chest as he sprinted away from the lake, the chilling laughter of the ghost ringing in his ears. He didn't dare look back, for fear of what he might see. Once safely outside the park's boundaries, he stopped to catch his breath. The encounter had shaken him to his core, and as he recounted the experience to his friends the next day, he could hardly believe what had happened. He swore he had witnessed a real ghost, and the icy grip of fear remained with him for days. Despite the terror of that night, Lamar Park continued to be a popular destination during the day. Children played, couples strolled hand in hand, and picnics filled the grassy knolls. But as dusk approached, the atmosphere shifted. The park transformed into a realm of shadows and whispers, where the tragic memories of the past lingered like a heavy fog. The warning. As David shared his story with others, he learned that he was not alone in his experience. Many had felt the ghost's presence, and some had even encountered the sorrowful spirit at the lake. Local legends warned about the angry spirit that roamed the park at night, forever searching for a release that he would never achieve. Those who wandered too close to the water were cautioned to beware of the man in the mist, for his grasp was said to be as cold as the water he drowned in. On certain nights, the locals would gather around bonfires and share tales of the ghost of Lamar Park. They spoke of flickering lights on the lake, the sounds of laughter that turned into cries, and the fleeting shadows that danced just out of reach. The spirit's longing for peace resonated with the community, becoming a part of their lore, a shared acknowledgement of the loss that had occurred within those serene surroundings. A haunting legacy. As the seasons change, so did the stories. David found himself returning to the park, each visit a test of courage and curiosity. He sought to uncover the truth behind the legend, to understand why the spirit was trapped in such a beautiful place. Each time he walked the paths of Lamar Park, he felt the weight of history around him, as if the trees themselves whispered the names of those who had come before. One night, emboldened by the passage of time and the reassurance of friends, David returned to the park with a group of companions. They carried flashlights and snacks, determined to embrace the legend rather than fear it. As they laughed and shared stories beneath the stars, a chill swept through the air. The laughter faded, replaced by an uneasy silence that settled over the group. As they approached the lake, the fog rolled in thick and heavy. David felt a familiar shiver run down his spine, the memories of that fateful encounter rushing back. The group huddled together, unsure of what to expect. Just as they began to feel at ease, a low whistle echoed through the air, a sound that seemed to come from the depths of the fog. "Did you hear that?" one friend whispered, and everyone fell silent, straining to listen. The figure appeared again, standing by the water's edge, its shoulders hunched as if burdened by sorrow. Finding peace. This time, instead of fear, David felt an overwhelming sense of empathy. "What do you want?" he called out, his voice steady despite the fear clenching his stomach. The figure turned, its hollow eyes locking onto David's. For a moment, time stood still as they stared at one another across the void of the lake. David felt a connection, an understanding that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The spirit's mournful gaze conveyed a story untold. A plea for acknowledgement. "Help me find peace," the ghost whispered. And with that, David understood. The spirit was not malicious, it was lost, yearning for recognition and a chance to be remembered. Empowered by this revelation, David rallied his friends to share the story of the ghost of Lamar Park. They decided to honor the memory of the man who had drowned by organizing gatherings to commemorate his life and the tragic events that had unfolded at the lake. Over time, they would invite the community to join them, creating a space for remembrance, healing, and understanding. Conclusion: a new legacy. As word spread about the gatherings, more people began to visit Lamar Park, not out of fear, but out of respect for the spirit that still lingered there. The atmosphere shifted, laughter and remembrance filled the air, and the park transformed from a site of haunting to a place of connection and solace. The ghost of Lamar Park became a symbol of hope, reminding everyone that even in death, the stories of those who came before us deserve to be heard and honored. As David and his friends continued their efforts, they felt the presence of the spirit transform from one of sorrow to one of peace. And on quiet nights, when the moon shone brightly over the lake, David could almost hear the whispers of gratitude carried on the wind, a gentle reminder that while some souls may linger, they can also find the peace they seek through the love and remembrance of the living. Continue to the sixth story. The ghost of Sam Bass Theater. Nestled in the heart of Round Rock, Texas, the Sam Bass Theater once thrived as a cultural epicenter, where vibrant performances and classic plays captivated audiences. For decades, it hosted the talents of local artists and welcomed patrons eager for entertainment. However, as the years rolled on, the theater fell into disrepair and was abandoned in the 1970s, leaving behind a hollow shell steeped in mystery and darkness. Since then, the Sam Bass Theater has become notorious for the restless spirits believed to haunt its dilapidated halls. Locals often recount eerie tales of shadowy figures moving along the corridors or the faint sound of gentle music emanating from deep within the building. Even when no one is present, some have reported seeing the silhouette of a man dressed in vintage attire, standing solemnly on the empty stage, his mournful eyes watching with a sadness that transcends time. A night of investigation. One fateful night, a group of paranormal investigators, led by the determined and passionate Sarah, decided to explore the haunted theater. Armed with ghost hunting equipment and a flickering sense of trepidation, they approached the grand wooden doors that creaked ominously as they pushed them open. The air inside was thick with history and a palpable chill that sent shivers down their spines. As they stepped into the dimly lit auditorium, the remnants of the past surrounded them. The old, tattered seats and the wrinkled stage curtain hung like ghosts of former glory, creating an eerie tableau that seemed frozen in time. The air was stale, holding onto the whispers of those who had once gathered to watch performances that brought joy and entertainment. As they ventured closer to the stage, one of the team members, Mark, felt a tingling sensation at the back of his neck. Just then, he heard soft footsteps echoing from behind the curtain. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, a mix of curiosity and fear lacing his voice. The others nodded, their faces pale with anticipation. The haunting unfolds. As they shone their flashlights toward the source of the noise, the beam illuminated a figure, a man in a black suit. Standing with his back to them, the room felt charged with energy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Before they could call out, the figure slowly turned around. The man's face was ghostly pale, his deep-set eyes hollow and devoid of life. He stood silently for a moment, his presence both haunting and mesmerizing. Then, without warning, he lunged toward them with an unearthly speed that sent a jolt of terror through the group. "Run!" Sarah screamed, and the team bolted for the exit, their hearts racing. The echoes of frantic footsteps chased them down the aisles, accompanied by a sinister laughter that seemed to swirl around them like a chilling wind. Outside, they gasped for breath, the cool night air a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere they had just escaped. Yet, even as they stood in the safety of the moonlight, they could still hear the distant sound of the footsteps and the eerie laughter fading into the darkness. The theater's legacy. The Sam Bass Theater remained a monument to its tragic past, standing stark against the Texas night sky. It was a place filled with shadows, haunted by the stories of those who had once graced its stage. The friends, still shaken by their experience, knew they had encountered something otherworldly, something that lingered in the theater's hollow halls. As they shared their harrowing story with the locals in the days that followed, they learned that they were not alone in their encounter. Many in the community had felt the ghostly presence and had stories of their own, tales of the spectral actor who still roamed the stage, searching for an audience that would never again gather to watch his performance. Determined to pay tribute to the lost souls of the theater, Sarah and her friends began organizing monthly gatherings to share ghost stories and honor the memory of the performers who had come before them. They invited local residents to join them, creating a communal space for remembering and celebrating the rich history of the Sam Bass Theater. Finding closure. With each gathering, the energy surrounding the theater began to change. What was once a place of fear transformed into a hub of connection and remembrance. The community embraced the stories of the haunted theater, sharing their experiences and encouraging others to come and learn about its haunted history. As the months passed, Sarah often returned to the theater, feeling a growing sense of connection to the spirits that lingered there. Each visit deepened her understanding of the importance of recognizing and honoring those who had suffered. She stood on the stage, imagining the performances that had once captivated audiences, and she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the stories that were shared. One night, under the glow of the full moon, the community gathered for a special event dedicated to the spirits of the Sam Bass Theater. Sarah stood at the front, sharing the history of the theater and the importance of remembering the past. As she spoke, the atmosphere shifted. A warm breeze filled the auditorium, wrapping around the guests like a gentle embrace. A new era for the theater. The haunted reputation of the Sam Bass Theater transformed from one of fear into one of respect and recognition. The presence of the spirits no longer felt malevolent. Instead, it was as if they were grateful for the acknowledgement of their stories. As the community continued to gather and share stories, David could almost feel the weight of the spirits lifting, replaced by a sense of peace. The theater was no longer a place of sorrow. It had become a sanctuary for memory and connection. In the stillness of the night, when the wind whispered through the trees, Sarah could hear the echoes of applause and laughter carried on the breeze, a reminder that even in the shadows, the stories of those who came before were still alive, waiting to be shared and celebrated. And as the curtain fell on their gatherings, they all knew that the legacy of the Sam Bass Theater would continue. Not just as a haunted location, but as a cherished part of the community's history, where the living and the dead could find harmony in the tales that bound them together. Thank you for joining us on this haunting journey through the ghostly tales of Texas. From the chilling whispers at Lamar Park to the spectral figures haunting the Sam Bass Theater, we hope these stories have both intrigued and unsettled you. As we delve into the past, we remember that every shadow has a story, and every ghost has a reason for lingering. If you've enjoyed exploring these haunted sites with us, please give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. What ghostly legends would you like us to uncover next? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling adventures and spine-chilling stories from around the world. Until next time, keep your lights on and your curiosity alive. Who knows what awaits in the darkness?